Hi everyone, a very good evening. Welcome to the Derac Conversation series powered by the Grey Matter. This month of September on the Derac series is dedicated to Vahura and its team members as they are celebrating their 10th anniversary. And today we have Aneesh Patnaik from Vahura joining us. Aneesh graduated from Symbiosis Law School in 2008, post which he went ahead and he practiced as a litigation lawyer for 5 years before moving to the business side of law. He currently heads the litigation consulting vertical at Vahura. So allow me to now invite Aneesh to join us live. Hello Anish,
Hi, Shreya.
welcome to Chat. How are
Thanks.
you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good too. Well, exciting year for Vahura, so congratulations
It
on
is. It is.
completing
Thank you.
10
Thank
years.
you. We're all very happy. It's a great milestone for us.
Absolutely. Okay,
Number.
so sorry, were you saying
I said
something?
10 is a big number.
It is a big number, and you've been there for most part of the journey. I think over 9 years,
Almost, yes. Closing.
almost 9 years. So clearly, you've seen the organization grow. That's fantastic. We'll get to there, but before that, let's get to know you a little more. Tell us, why did you choose to study law?
Uh, Shreya, so I was a science student in class 11 and 12, but I was very clear that I didn't want to do engineering or medical, and economics was always on something which I was super interested in. And then I think one of my seniors from my school went to law school, and in the first break came back and told me about law school, and it suddenly just sort of stuck with me. And I think also my granddad was a lawyer, but I feel that that was perhaps the genesis or the inception of it, but I can't say that I was sure. Seeing my granddad, I always wanted to be a lawyer, but maybe that was the starting of the idea. And then meeting my senior and just sort of figuring out my way in school sort of helped. And I chose to give the law entrance exams, and did that. Yeah.
And Symbiosis happened. Fantastic. So, speaking of law school, why don't you share your most fond memory from your law school experience? One memory. I'll put you on the spot. One memory.
One memory. Well, I think if I had to have a takeaway from law school, it would be the friendship and the bonds with my seniors and my juniors. Is perhaps my biggest takeaway. I went to an off-campus law school, so those friendships are something that I cherish even today. They're all the network that I have. They mean the most to me, and shout out to the people that know that who I'm talking about. So.
And tell us, what is the craziest thing that you've done in law school? Has there been any?
I, we should not be talking about it on this platform.
Okay, I'm just pulling it out. Like, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so you decided to pursue litigation after your graduation, and in fact, you got the opportunity to work at the chambers of Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi. So, tell us, how did you narrow down on litigation as your practice area, and how did you come about finding this opportunity of working, at Manu Singhvi's chamber?
Um, you know, honestly, I should be completely honest. The year I graduated was not a great year for law students. We were heading into a recession, and also I wasn't good enough to be recruited on campus. I mean, I should not even lie about it. I think there were much better students. My peers were significantly better than me academically and everything else that they'd done in law. There was no chance I was going to make it on the campus side, but. Uh, I knew throughout my 5 years of law school, I was actually very sure I wanted to be a corporate lawyer. I was not very keen on litigation, but then the year that it was, and in trying to look for a job, I happened to know somebody who knew that Dr. Singhvi was looking, and I shared my CV and got a call and started working with him. And of course, I always, throughout the time that I spent in chambers, I always wondered at my luck of having landed that job. I mean, purely it was luck. I cannot even make up the fact that I was probably the most meritorious person who had applied to his chamber in those days, and I think it was purely luck. Once I was there, I may have sustained working there, and those, I mean, in those long working hours and ridiculously high pressure situations. But I think landing the job was pure luck, and I think that was also perhaps the genesis of my next journey, which was in Vahura, which we will talk about.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And speaking of, your litigation stint, could you tell us what have been your key professional learnings from the 5 years you practiced as a litigation lawyer?
So the biggest takeaway is something which I would tell everybody to not do is to do what I did, is to join a senior advocate straight out of law school. That to me is the most important sort of learning that I have. If I could turn back time, I would not choose not to apply to Dr. Singh and start with either a small firm, an individual lawyer, an individual advocate, a chamber somewhere that did drafting, right? That's a skill set that I did not pick up, and it is something that I even find today that I should have known. And had I known better back then, I would have made a better choice. That's the biggest key takeaway. Apart from that, I mean, there were so many things I learned in the chambers. Multitasking. I mean, we used to do so many litigations on a given day. On a very good day, I would maybe have one or two briefs. On a bad day, I would have 4 or 5 briefs in different courts. So multitasking was something I picked up. Hard work. Dr. Singhvi was one of the most incredibly hardworking lawyers that I've ever met. I mean, at his age, he could work 12, 14, 16 hours, and I would be ashamed of the, saying that I'm tired at 10:30 or 11 or 12 at night. And that kind of dedication to the profession I have not seen anywhere else. Mentoring. I joined a chamber of an amazing set of 5 other juniors. They helped me understand. I had not seen a Supreme Court before in my law school tenure. They helped me understand the Supreme Court, the various tribunals that I'd never gone to. They really helped mentor me in the first few years, which is something I've imbibed, or I try to imbibe. I'm sure a lot of people that work with me will laugh at me, but I hope they don't. But it's something that I've always tried to do. Network. I think my biggest professional takeaway would probably be the network, the number of lawyers, advocates, professionals who used to come to the chamber to brief Dr. Singhvi. You get to meet so many different kinds of lawyers, what traditionally are tier one law firms or boutique tier litigation practices, or individual lawyers from different states, from different parts of the country would come to Delhi to brief Dr. Singhvi, and you get to meet this super wide array of lawyers, which was incredible. And the last takeaway was just pure love. His love for litigation and the people around me, their love for litigation was the primary driver that they were in that job. They would live and breathe litigation and law, and I think that is when I understood that I'm not cut out to be that person. I knew it right there that I'm not cut out to be that person. I think that was my big learning, that you have to truly love what you do to be in that space. And yeah.
Yeah, and so rightly put, because litigation requires patience. You don't right away go ahead and start getting big cases. I think patience is tested immensely in a space like that, and the only way you can continue and be patient is only if you're passionate about the subject itself. So very, very nicely put, and thank you for sharing your learnings with us. So tell us, when this realization happened eventually, that you perhaps may not be wanting to do litigation for the rest of your life, what was the next step that you took?
So naturally, I think after spending a few years, I started thinking about what my next step was going to be. Again, I won't turn around and say that I was so clear about what I wanted to do. And one of the pitfalls of having worked with Dr. Singhvi was um, we worked on some of the largest disputes in the country at the time, very high stake litigation, stuff that was being reported every day, results for which you would see every day. And it sort of became like a bit of a drug to be in the thick of that in the thick of things. And I realized that maybe if I now change and move to another firm or a council, I won't have the same drive to get up and get to work, because my biggest excitement to get to work was what is going to happen in this litigation today, right? And if I don't have that driver, what else will motivate me to get out of bed in the morning? And I started mulling over the idea of not law, and MBA was something that I was always interested in. I had a very close friend in law school who was doing his entrance exams in his final year, and I chose to sort of write that exam wave with him to just see where I stood, and I did reasonably okay. And I was like, you know what, maybe um, an MBA, maybe after law, and I was always clear that MBA and law make a great combination. It's not a prevalent combination in India, but it is certainly a very good combination internationally. So I figured that maybe somewhere it's something that I could try, and that's the idea. And the idea was to then see if I could switch over to the business side somewhere, and then figure out, a couple of years of business work, and then sort of do an MBA so that I can show that practical experience and exposure. And in that respect, I think I reached out to Vahura first to ask if they could help, right? And
As a candidate, you mean?
as a candidate, pretty much as a professional candidate is what I did. Reach out to Vahura first, and um, uh, I think what we realized is, one, Vahura at the time didn't interact with that many litigators, and I think I spoke to members, shout out Arpita and Kavya, and they put me in touch with Ritvik separately, and Ritvik and I sort of started talking about the profession and how differently the profession is run, and my eventual goal to do an MBA, and that I needed something in between. And the initial idea between Ritvik and I was that I'd spend a year at Vahura and help the team understand litigation, pass on everything that I know about litigation, whatever little I knew about litigation, pass it on to the team, and then move on to an MBA. That was the initial idea. Um, 9 years later, I'm still here. I don't know whether I'm that slow in either passing on information or not to be kidding around, but I truly love the people I work with, and that's why I'm here even 9 years later.
Fantastic. And, so it's so interesting, from approaching an organization in a candidate, in a candidate role, to then working and in fact going ahead and helping them set up an entire new vertical altogether. What started as perhaps coaching became a vertical, fully running functional vertical. I'm just interested to know, Aneesh, when you say litigation consulting at Vahura, what does it mean? Is it only recruitment for litigation lawyers? Is that what Vahura looks at, or is there a larger objective of this vertical?
So the vertical will sort of help. Um to put it, my elevator pitch on the vertical would be that we would help litigators in their next role, or we would help an organization figure out their litigation gaps. So, helping recruit litigators at various levels, whether it is for law firms or for individual lawyers or for counsels. We place people, litigation folks, with counsels as well, with small firms, with large firms. So we're completely agnostic to anyone who wants litigators and reaches out to us, and or we convince them to reach out to us, however it works. We're happy to help. The idea is to professionalize litigation recruitment and take the luck factor out of litigation recruitment. Basically, the journey that I made, which is because I knew somebody who knew somebody who knew that Dr. Singhvi was looking, that connection chain needs to be broken, and litigation recruitment should become extremely professional. It is at the end of the day. I know a lot of corporate lawyers here will kill me or threaten me for saying this, but it is the tip of the spear in terms of law. The law is laid down at the end of the day either in Parliament or in the Supreme Court. So the litigation is the tip of the spear. So you need to have the best talent for the right reasons in litigation, and our premise, or our long-term ambition is to help professionalize the space, to see that the best meritorious professionals get the best meritorious jobs, and not because they knew someone. That's the primary objective. Whether that is now for helping litigation recruitment for law firms or what we call the private practice space, we've helped a lot of litigation folks join the in-house vertical also to head sort of litigation management for large corporate legal teams. So heads of litigation that join a large corporate to head the litigation vertical for them. That's something that we help work on. We also help strategize with firms that may not have a litigation practice at all. And that's where the large consulting element comes in. Bala, who's our head of consulting, really helps put together a lot of data and a lot of points for us together to see if a firm that chooses to enter the litigation space or to start the litigation vertical or to expand the litigation vertical, how they look at it in with a business lens, pretty much, right? So that's the idea. So I do everything that Vahura does, but with a litigation sort of caveat. So as long as it's litigation, I'm involved. If it isn't litigation, then mostly nobody gives me a call, and I'm sort of.
Okay, and just speaking, just trying to connect this with your whole MBA desire that you had, um, everything that you could or would have done post your MBA, are you able to fulfill those inner desires that you had, that I will work and do I'll be a businessman or do something around the business? And surprisingly, here we're talking about the business of law. Um, have those desires been fulfilled? I'm assuming they have been, considering you've been in Vahura for now over 9 years, but it'll be just nice if you could just tell us how not doing an MBA has kind of given you the opportunity to actually experience how a business works.
So two things. One, I have and haven't done an MBA. I say I have because um, an MBA sort of is 2 years, and there are a number of things you study, you read, and all of that. And I believe that in my 9 years, I've had an experiential MBA at Vahura. I think everything that I could have done at an MBA college, I've probably done in the last 9 years. I've learned so much about um, setting up a vertical, looking at cost, looking at people as an asset, a resource, uh, deploying resources, deploying capital. So all of those things are things that are taught in an MBA school, and I've done it here experientially, learning from everyone around me, which has been incredible, which is probably one of the reasons why I've not gone ahead and left for an MBA. The other objective of an MBA would be that you would come back and be part of management in an organization, or you'll come back and be an entrepreneur. And here at Vahura, I'm sort of playing both roles. I am part of the management team at Vahura, and I am also an entrepreneur where I've set up the vertical. I have people that work with me who help me, and we together work with all the litigation professionals that reach out to us. We help them out and try our level best to sort of try and professionalize litigation recruitment across the board. So uh, I feel in some way I think we've done both.
And considering that you are at the management level and you also lead your own team, and you've done costs, you've done everything around all the things that a business requires. Basically, where does your heart truly lie? Because we all have our own favorites, right? Like, I may have to do everything, but like, this is one thing I thoroughly enjoy. So what would that be for you?
My heart truly lies in riding motorcycles. That's the one one thing that I'm always sort of keen to do. But when I'm not doing that on the weekend, and uh, I think my first love has always been litigation. I've truly loved litigation. I loved the time that I spent in chambers. Um, so I think to me, every time I speak to a litigation lawyer, I think the first half an hour is primarily spent 15 minutes reminiscing about time in court, how it was for me and how it was for them, and how, if we have crossed paths or even if we haven't, how times have changed. And the next 15 minutes is about what's going on in court today, which keeps the engagement. Um, and that's where the difference is. What I initially said, you have to love the law. I love litigation, but not the law as much. I love litigation. I think stuff like accounting and management comes harder to me. It's not a muscle that I ever had, and it's taken me time to learn it and build it. I'm sure my team will may comment or say that what an idiot. I'm sure they all turn around and say that behind my back. But yeah, fair enough.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Another thing that I actually wanted to ask is, uh, the intent of the vertical, the larger objective of, kind of streamlining the whole process of recruitment, which is fairly streamlined in the corporate, not so much in the litigation. And now Vahura is trying to do it and has been successful, is the intent, with the vertical. But your role also entails a lot of HR work. Considering you're at a management level, it means you constantly in you're relating with, whether it's your team, whether it's clients. There's like a lot of human interaction. Is that something you thrive on?
Yes, I mean, I do consider myself to be an extrovert. I'm very happy meeting people. I'm very happy speaking to people. I can spend all day, all night talking to people and just conversing. It is something that comes easily to me. So that to me is not a challenge. I think the challenge is to then manage expectations and convert those relationships into professional relationships and breach that barrier of someone, because at the end of the day, when you're speaking to a professional who's looking for a job, they imbibe a lot of trust in you to give them the right advice and to sort of they repose a lot of trust. So to come good on that trust is hard work, and so all the fun discussions and conversations will always crystallize to one overarching sense of reality that, listen, this person needs a job or needs to be in a better place, and we need to figure out what the best place for them is, and that reality does dawn on us quite often. So you know
Wonderful.
the
Thank you
fun
for being
does.
so candid.
Thank you.
Were you saying something? I'm
No, no,
sorry if
the
I cut
fun does become fairly serious very quickly, so
you.
it becomes a cycle. So yeah.
Absolutely. And you did initially mention about your interaction with Ritvik that happened, which led to formation of this vertical. Um, is there something that you've learned specifically from Ritvik which you're very grateful for? A lot of people have different knacks. And primarily, I'm just asking more on the business aspect of it. Is there something that you've specifically picked up from him which you think has been extremely beneficial?
I think his ability to have a hard conversation without hurting the other person is something that I would say that I've learned very well. Um, First of all, I think his ability to have a hard conversation, number one. A lot of people everybody is great at giving good news, but most people don't have the skill to give bad news. It's something that we have to learn on a day-to-day basis, right? I mean, so many professionals reach out to us, but we are only able to help a very minuscule percentage of that, which means that the larger conversation, the number of no's that I have to say versus the number of yeses are there is a big delta. So it is a learning curve, um, but there is a very good art to giving bad news without hurting the person in front of you, and I think that's something that Ritik is very good at. I mean, there are so many other things he's great at, but I think that's the one thing that I've picked up.
And it's such an important skill, especially when you're running a business. Thank you again for sharing that with us, Anish. Okay, keeping in mind that you've practiced litigation and you've also helped in the when it comes to recruitment in the litigation space, so clearly you know the field much more than probably most of us here. What I want to ask, Anish, is that what will be great is if you could bust some myths around a litigation career, because clearly I had many myths like litigation doesn't pay, you have to spend so many years. The only reason I picked up a law firm job primarily is because you need instant gratification after law school. I mean, back then in my head. So if you could just bust some myths and actually tell us what the reality is now in 2021, that'll be very insightful.
Okay, so some core realities about litigation is that litigation is extremely tough on you in terms of time. In the first few years, I think anybody who has the words work-life balance and litigator, I think, don't go well together, right? Uh, one must realize there's a very core fundamental difference between a normal lawyer and a litigator. A normal lawyer has two bosses, their own boss partner that they must be working under, and the client, right? Litigation adds a third dimension, which is the courts. And you are always at the mercy of one of these three timelines which you don't have control over, right? Anyway, if two people are pushing and pulling, it becomes hard. But in litigation, you're pulled a third side. A court might decide to give a shorter date. It might pull something up for hearing. It may change its mind in the middle of a hearing. So it is very hard on you in terms of time, and it is very time consuming. So one, work-life balance and litigation is going to be very time consuming. That's number one. Number two, yes, not every litigation job should pay as much as, or sorry, not every litigation job pays as much as the regular average corporate job. That's true. And then the challenge there is that most people again measure corporate jobs as the few tier one, tier two, tier three firms that come to campus, and the few regular corporates that come for campus recruitment, and the salaries that they offer vis-a-vis the salaries that are sorry, I have dogs, but yeah, but the salary that maybe a litigation chamber may offer. But of course, there are averages that need to sort of get sort of worked on in the middle of all this. And I would say the average litigation, and again, today we've reached a point where litigation salaries in tier one firms are the same as corporate salaries in tier one firms. For the most part, this is true about tier two firms as well. And I feel that tier three firms are reaching that position very quickly, where you have a situation that if you are joining, for example, an Amarchand or a Khaitan or a trilegal as a litigator and as a corporate lawyer, you're making the same amount of money, right? So the average chamber is very slowly bumping up salaries, and you still have people who want to hire a junior for 20,000 or 30,000 to start with. But I also feel that is also true, because when you look at smaller individual practices that are doing individual corporate practice work, which is your non-traditional, non-litigation drafting and contract work and all of that work, they also tend to pay the same, right? But the growth for a litigator at the end of a few years is significantly better than to join a small sort of practice. If you have the ability to work hard and really spend time not caring about your personal life in the first few years, I think you can get a far distance in litigation, and that's the reality of litigation. Uh, what are the other myths? Is it a hard profession for women? I think in the beginning, as many men and women enter litigation, I'm upset to admit and to see that as they grow, you find more men at the top and fewer women at the top. And I wish that there was a natural way of trying to change it. It was celebrated that today we have 4 women in the Supreme Court out of the 33. We should also look back and figure out why there are 4 out of 33, and why should it not be 16 and 16 with a CGI who could be a gentleman or a lady, right? Uh, um, that we need to get to that point, and that is certainly true at the higher echelons of litigation. There are fewer women. Um, Apart from that, I don't know. I mean, the profession needs to be one of the biggest myths of the profession is actually not a myth. It is true that it is a little nepotistic. And when I say nepotistic, I don't mean that it's the relationships that get the job, but it is who you know and how you know them that gets you your job. And it's not designed that way. It's just happened by chance to be that way. That um, that a senior advocate does not have a professional website that you can write to them. They'll have an email ID, and if you happen to get that email from somewhere and send your CV in like I did, sure, you stand a chance. But what about maybe 70 others in my batch who perhaps were much better suited to getting that job then? So these are realities. They are not myths, certainly. So yeah.
but they're so relevant, so relevant. Something as simple as getting an email ID. And I remember struggling to find email IDs, you know.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we would कहते हैं ना तुक्का मारते हैं कि first name होगा, last name होगा. Like we try to figure out permutation
Uh,
combinations, you know, कि something will work. So
it's
yeah, that's absolutely true.
it is true, and I think the antiquated nature of the bar, not trying to allow lawyers to advertise, has traditionally set the mindset and the tone that lawyers will not have a website, etc. It's only the firms that have a website. Litigation lawyers, again, travel in packs, work in packs, and are in that little circle. So LinkedIn is not something that they use actively. Listings are not regular. So you find that it's a bigger challenge to be there, surely. Um, that's the endeavor of at least my vertical and my team's vertical, to try and see if we can professionalize this a little better, right? To try and find ways in which we can recruit for more litigation practices, the best people for them. Again, I don't promise that I can convince a chamber to start paying 1 lakh a month, but I can. Our endeavor today is to convince a chamber that let us send you 5 best CVs and then you can pick 1 out of 5. That's the endeavor.
And I think it's a fantastic initiative because it's about time certain things need to change. And, you know, they may have been relevant, say, 20, 30 years before, but they're not prevalent now. So thank you for taking
Thank.
on to that initiative. Uh, Tell us, okay, so more about you. Tell us what drives you to do your best at work. Don't worry, I'm not going to corner you anymore. But like, what are your driving factors besides your bike, which I'm assuming you take when you go to work?
No, I don't actually. No, I think genuinely trying to grow the vertical, generally trying to meet and help people. That's probably my biggest driver, and I think somewhere deep down, the idea to to take this and grow this to a certain level, to help as many people as we can find their next happy place at work is pretty much what drives me. And I think, like I said, my love for litigation is what keeps me doing this for the last 9 years. I love litigation. I love hearing about cases. I love hearing about people's time in courts, and that's what drives me to keep meeting more and more people, having as many conversations, whether it is inane, mundane conversation about. I mean, I will ask, how is the latest edition of the samosa in the Supreme Court, for example. It's something that I'm super interested in, because in my time the Supreme Court samosa was not as great as the Delhi High Court samosa. So
And
so
that's a great conversation starter,
that's
especially if you're a regular at, you know, High Court and Supreme Court. Everyone's going to relate to it. So yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, so my last question, Anish, to you is: do you have any advice for law students or lawyers who may not be sure about practicing the law?
so advice about joining litigation.
Litigation, corporate, or law in general, like how you moved away from practicing law to the business of law. So, what advice would you give someone who may not be happy? Perhaps they are in law school already or they are practicing at the moment.
So I'd say that, listen, for anybody who's a student today and or is a lawyer today and is not sure about practicing, I'd say that, listen, uh, try try out one more iteration of whatever you might be doing. It is very possible that you are just having a bad time in your current organization, which is driving you away, or okay, not for law students, but for working professionals. It might just be that you're not in the right organization, and hence you're not able to like the job that you do. Try one more iteration of whatever you might want to do within the profession, and if still that doesn't work, go ahead and find something else that does, because if you're not a happy lawyer, you're not going to be a successful lawyer. I'm very sure of that. You'll get there. You'll eventually get there. Time will get you promoted. Over time you will get promoted to a principal associate or a counsel or a partner, but you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be the first pick for a client. You're not going to be that person. So go ahead and find something that does that drives you. Reach out to folks at Vahura, speak to them, reach out to anyone. I mean, and have a conversation. For law students, boy, that's a difficult one, because if you've law school, I'm told, has become extraordinarily expensive. So I know if I tell students that please go ahead and quit, I'm sure there will be parents who would issue a fatwa. So I'm not going to say that. uh, um, I would tell a student to utilize the profession, the time in law school to learn the subjects that they've learned, and utilize those skill sets elsewhere, because law also teaches you so many other new subjects, right? You learn economics, political science, you learn accounts, you learn so many different things as a law student. There are avenues open for you that you can do after law school, which are non-law related. You just have to then focus on that.
Full conversation was. Am I there? Am I there?
So yeah, after I finished, I didn't hear you.
Okay, I must have been my network then. I was saying that thank you for this exciting and insightful conversation. Clearly learned a lot about the litigation consulting vertical, which I personally didn't know much about. And I think the larger objective is so important and so prevalent in today's time and age. And the organization Vahura in general is doing a fantastic job
Thanks.
there. And thank you, Anish, for doing this with us.
Thanks for
Your
giving me the.
first Instagram live. I hope you're now confident enough to join any live altogether.
No, but sure. Thank you for this, and thank you for giving us the time. I had a great time, and I was a little nervous, but I figured it out. But thanks for doing this with us. Thank you.
We had a great time as well, and we wish you a fantastic weekend.
Thanks, Shreya. You too.
Thank you.